What's up, everybody? It's the Conservative Christian back here again. I want to make another video about something. I don't know what, but here goes. So I was kind of talking online with some people, and I don't know, like it just kind of came down to, well, I mean, I should probably say what happened first, but so I was talking online, and someone posted a picture of a guy who said something along the lines of, it was basically that if bisexual in the LGBT, if the B in the LGBT stands for bisexual, then doesn't that imply that there are only two genders? Now, initially the train of thought that I went down this was, okay, like I understand that, you know, the LGBTQ community, like, has different views with sex and gender, it was a repost, so like my friend then mentioned someone who said something in response to that, which was like, oh well, if you know, well, if the word bi means two, then does that mean that in the word bicycle that there are only two bicycles in the whole world? And I don't know, like they were both kind of dumb arguments, I think, because gender is a subcategory of sex. And I was kind of trying to think about this one, because I for some reason I was just brain farting. Like I was initially thinking that, like, okay, well I looked up the word gender. Is kind of just means like basically a subcategory of something. At its core, basically, is what it means. And so when we say gender, it would be in the context of sexuality. It would be under sex. So when it comes to two sexes, there are genders, right? And gender essentially means that you are one of these things. So in the subcategory of sex, you either have male or female. And for some reason, this didn't click right off the bat. I was thinking more gender in this context because I was kind of trying to go down their train of thinking to some degree, because I kind of know how these people are going to respond to these things. And I just kind of said, like, well, this argument doesn't make any sense, and it's not really comparing apples to apples necessarily, because if you say that saying bisexual means that there are only two genders, then the word bicycle only means that there are only two bikes in the entire world. Now, obviously, the post that the comment that my friend was reposting as a result of this snapshot of this guy saying this was essentially that, and it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense, because the suffix sickle in bicycle doesn't mean bike. The word is literally bicycle, not bike. So it's not the same thing to say. It's not the same comparison whenever you try and say that, well, I guess that means that bicycle means that there's only two bikes in the whole world. No, because sickle in the context of the word bicycle is under the third definition of the word cycle, which is essentially an orbit, a ring, a loop. And so I said, like, okay, well, this is dumb, because obviously this isn't the same comparison. You know, that's the reason why a unicycle has one wheel, why a bicycle has two wheels, and why a tricycle has three wheels. Now, here's the thing. This word came into fruition way before transgender or gender fluidity was even a thing. So in its context at the time that it was made, bisexual literally meant that you liked both genders, male and female, regardless of what sex you were personally. And now they're trying to spin it and say that, oh, well, you know, now that gender is fluid, now it means this. It's like, no, you see, this is the problem that I have with these identity politics groups in general. Look, I have no problem for people wanting to create or invent new words for new things or new concepts or new ideas that come into play. The problem that I see happening, though, is that people want to just redefine words to mean whatever they want them to mean. I have a problem with that, okay? And everyone has a problem with that. The dictionary has a problem with it. Our means of communication, the way that in which we communicate every single day is becoming harder and harder because I have to do all kinds of mental gymnastics and ask people what they mean by a word that I shouldn't have to ask them what this word means. Now, obviously, to be fair, the same argument could be thrown back at me where it's like, oh, well, I have to go on a mental gymnastics trip myself just to get people to understand what gender I identify as. So it could go both ways, but here's the thing, okay? My side is based off of reason, facts, and logic and history, whereas yours is not, okay? From the beginning of history, boy meant boy, girl meant girl. There is no way that you're going to redefine those words. And the fact that I'm using the words by the dictionary definition that's existed for hundreds of years, or however long, decades, I don't know how long the dictionary's been out, my argument is more valid in the sense that I'm sticking to the way the words were meant and designed to be, and that it's essentially your responsibility to educate yourself and know the definitions of these words than it is for me to now operate in your world that you've just recently created, to which you have no rules because you haven't answered the question as to how many genders there are. You haven't scientifically shown or proven, what constitutes another person as a specific gender based on science. Okay, like, look, if we're gonna find common ground here, this is the most ground I'm willing to give. Okay, and it's that, look, and I said this in my last videos. Okay, I think at least for brevity's sake, at least for the sake of humanity and society, for applications paperwork, can we just at least acknowledge? Can we at least find common ground on this on the sole basis that, well, first of all, I don't dehumanize you. I don't see you as any less of a human being because of your lifestyle. I want to make that very clear because people I know are going to try and attack me for that. But two is that crap, I lost my train of thought. That these things have existed since forever. And there is nothing other than something inside of your brain that's telling you that you are something else. Can we at least just find common ground? That's what I was saying. Can we at least find common ground on the fact that if you were born with a penis, you are a male, and if you're born with a vagina, you are a female? And then, aside from that, you can think however you want to think. If you just at least come to the basic acceptance of who you physically are, biologically, scientifically, no one cares about, how you identify, and just to at least keep things simple, can I at least not have to worry in the near future, hopefully not anyways, that if I see that your structure makes you out to look like a man or a woman, that if I call you a man, then I'm not going to be arrested for hate speech or for misgendering you, and then you can use that as a catalyst to be like, okay, yeah, I have, I'm a male, but, this is how I feel. I don't understand what the problem is with that. You guys are literally complicating society by trying to push this thing on. No one has a problem with you people identifying as whatever you want to identify as. However, when it comes to a culture, a society, that we have established rules and laws, and we have certain classifications for things, like a frog is an animal, a bush is a form of vegetation, or whatever. What you guys are essentially doing here is you're taking something that's existed for thousands of years, and now you're trying to essentially claim the mantle of the arbiter to now say that what you say goes. Okay, and look, even if that's something that you really want to fight for, you're going to have to fight for it. No one's just going to give it to you, and I can almost guarantee you that the more you keep pushing for this, the more people are going to keep fighting back. Okay, I don't think it's a winning battle, and I'm not saying this to be a dick. I'm not saying this to discourage people. I'm not saying this to dehumanize people. I'm not saying this to question people's existence. I'm saying that you people are are literally living in a world of your own making that is out of touch with reality. And I mean this with as much caring and kindness as I can, because you guys are literally destroying society by with this. Okay, no one has an issue with you guys wanting to live however you want to live. The problem comes when you start telling other people that they must abide by your way of thinking. Otherwise, you want to use the government as a club to get us fired, to have us arrested, to essentially slander us. Okay, and I think that some reasonable people will try and find common ground with you. Like I said in the past before, like, look, I may not indulge in your way of thinking. If I see that you physically look like a male, and you probably are, even though I haven't physically checked to see if you have a penis or vagina, I will at least try and find common ground and do you the decency of calling you something at least that you want to be called as. Okay, look, if you're a guy and you want to be called a girl's name, okay, fine. If you're a girl and you want to be called a guy's name, okay, fine. I'll call you by your name. But I will not, and I cannot, again, going back to, if you guys haven't seen my last, the second to 2 videos ago, I think it was, where I talked about this, the reason why I don't want to indulge in that way of thinking, again, is because, like I mentioned, I don't think it's good for you as a human being. I don't think it's good for society, and I don't think that it helps you to grow as a human being. I think it's very harmful to you, and I think it's very harmful to society, and I think that it's entertaining delusion. And again, you know, we don't tell people out there who think that the radio is talking to them that the radio is talking to them. We don't tell them that. We tell them that we care about them and that we want them to get the help that they need to get their brain to work in a way that is parallel to reality and society. And so I can at least, you know, I can at least call you by your name. But I'm not going to call you something that I don't think that you are, just because you feel as if me not doing that is subjective, or is subjectively threatening your existence. Look, no one's existence is being threatened by me not agreeing to call you something that you think that you are. Okay? In fact, if you wanted to call me a dog, you're not inherently putting my life at risk by anything. By saying that, well, you know, I think that you're a dog and not a man. I'm just going to look at you and call you crazy, and then I'm probably going to walk away because you're a crazy person. I feel like that's a more natural reaction to someone calling you something that you're not than it is for you to call me a dog, and then for me to say, no, I'm a dog, and if you don't call me that if you don't say that I'm a dog, and if you don't agree that I'm a dog, then you know, things might happen. That's not a rational response to someone calling you something that you're not. In fact, getting punched in the face would almost probably be a more reasonable approach to that than anything else. The most extreme example, you know, if someone calls you a moron or someone calls you a name, I feel like even a decent, a more reasonable response to even something like that, something that extreme, would be, you know, essentially you getting offended and I don't know, talking back to them or slapping them or something like that. It's not that you're forcing someone to think like you or that you're going to use the government. Can you think about it for a second? Can you think of if you called me a dog and I said, or if you called me a dog instead of a man, and I said, no, you're going to call me a dog, and if you don't call me a dog, then you're hate speeching me, and I'm going to, you know, I'm going to tell mom and dad, the government, what you said, and I'm going to essentially get you fired or arrested. That's not a reasonable response. That's not a rational response. The reasonable and rational response to someone calling you something that you aren't is either 1, to correct them, or 2, to say, you're stupid, and then turn around and walk away. People in the LGBT community, when it comes to transgenderism and gender fluidity, do neither of those things. They try and shove their beliefs down your throat at the point of the government. And that's the problem that people have. And this is the problem that I'm seeing within the transgender community. If you guys are really something that you, okay, I'm confident. Okay, I've heard that finding your gender, if you're gender fluid or whatever the crap the term is that it's a journey. And that once you find it, then you okay? But once you find out who you are, shouldn't you be confident in who you are? Shouldn't you be proud of who you are? It's no surprise to me that the suicide rates within the transgender community and the gender fluid, the people who don't know, who don't come to basic grips to who they are when it comes to sex, those people are the ones who just by nature, by just naturally have higher depression rates, higher chances of abusing alcohol, higher suicide rates. That is a problem that doesn't need any extra factors to be an issue. That's self-inflicted, I think. And so it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous to say that, you know, you want pride and that you want to take pride in who you are, but you can't. You say that you're this, but you don't take pride in it. You expect everyone else to take pride in it for you. And you demand that they acknowledge who you are. I don't care if you look, I don't care if you think that I'm a man or that if you agree with who I am as a person. I don't care. And you know what? I sleep just fine at night. Do you know what would cause me to not be able to sleep fine at night? And this, I'm speaking from example. I went through a time in life where I cared more than I should have of what other people thought of me. And it wasn't until I put my foot down and I started taking a stand for who I was and and accepting myself for who I was, that was when I stopped caring. Did I meet resistance? Sure, but it was a satisfying resistance. I was embracing the fire. I was embracing the suck, so to speak. But I was doing so knowing and being confident in who I was. And you could argue that you need both of those to exist together in order for that comfort. It doesn't make sense, but it's logically it doesn't make sense, but that's how it is. When you are in a space in life where you don't feel comfortable with who you are and you expect other people to validate that for you, but you don't do it yourself, and you don't really believe that, you don't really take a stand for that, that's where your problem is. Okay, look, and let me be very clear, again, just to make sure, I don't, if you're, especially so, if you're being bullied because of who you claim to be, I encourage you to stand for yourself. I guarantee you that you will feel more confident as a person doing that than if you sit back and you let people bully you, you let people punch you and hit you and do all those things. I guarantee it, because it was not, and I made sure that I was being aware of this because I wanted to test this out for myself. Okay, I fell into the trap at one point in life where I cared what people thought of me, and I thought that the measure that people liked me would help me feel better about myself as a person. It wasn't until I started making some very bold statements, taking a stance on something, whether I fully believed in it or not, because I had to take a side just to check it out and see if it held any weight. It wasn't until I started doing that, even though I wasn't necessarily sure where I stood on some controversial issues, I took a stand on one side after doing some research, even though I was still very hesitant to do so, because I didn't want to be seen as a racist or whatever. But it wasn't until I did that I started feeling more confident in myself, and I started feeling better about myself as a person. It wasn't when people were coddling me. It wasn't when people were saying, you know, David, you're such a tolerant, nice person. You're so, you know, you're not racist. You know, you're cool and all that stuff. It was not that made me feel more confident and more proud of who I was. It was when I put my foot down and I said, you know what? I don't really know what I necessarily fully believe in right now, but I need to do something for myself so that I can at least feel that I accomplished something that day. That was the moment when everything clicked, when everything started making sense, when I started feeling better about myself, and when I no longer felt like I needed to be validated by others in order to be proud of who I was as a human being. And I really, really, really think that is the primary issue when it comes to transgender and gender fluid issues. You guys think that you can be anything that you want to be. The reality is that you cannot. And as illogical as this may sound, I promise you that even if you're not sure which way you want to go, Take a side. Roll with it until it either fails you or it confirms that what you believe in with that is true. It's not until you do that that you will truly feel confident in who you are as a person. I can't stress this enough, you have to take a stand for who you are. Now let me be clear, when I say take a stand, I don't mean that you have to shove your beliefs in everyone else's faces. I'm not saying that, you have to go around just blatantly throwing your beliefs in people's faces or whatever the case may be, but you have to have a standard or something as to who you are and go with that. And I promise you this, okay, the details will work themselves out, okay? I have taken a stand to believe in something even though I wasn't 100% sure that it was 100% true. And then what happened as a result of me doing so is that I then was able to continue down that line of thought, and it allowed me to test things out to see if what happened was true. And this is ultimately, whether you think whether you really believe this is the case or not, this is what I really believe the problem is. I think that the reason why people in this community don't want to do that is because they know subconsciously that they will eventually come to the conclusion that they are either a man or a woman, and that's it. Because it goes against everything that their cause stands for. Their cause saying that you can essentially be whatever you feel like you are. Because as it stands, again, 82% of all people who are in this mindset, by the time that they reach adolescence, they come to terms and they accept who they are biologically. Again, this proves my point that they then proceed to live happy lives. Coincidence? Maybe. I doubt it. The logic, the way things play out consistently tells me that this is far from a coincidence. And if anything, this is the message that I want people to get out of all of this. Is that I think that you guys are scared to accept in your case, the possible reality that there are only two genders. And that if you try and take a stand yourself for who you are or who you want to be, that line of thought is going to fail you, and then you will then be forced to have to come to the acceptance that you are either a man or a woman. And so you seek others' approval to do that because you don't have the courage to do it yourself. Because you know that if you did, again, you would go down this train of thought where you would be proven wrong on who you claim you are, and that you would eventually run out of ways to go, and you'd eventually come back to the fact that you are either a man or a woman, period. That's just my thought anyways. Anyone out there, if you've gone through something like this and you were part of that community and you have something worthwhile sharing in regards to that, I encourage you to post something down below. If you guys have any questions about it, anything, if you want to ask me any questions further, message me in the comments below. Again, that's what I believe the reality is of all of this. And again, I want to try and end these videos on a positive note. I know I got a little bit into it, but I want to try and wrap this up in a nice way as well. Here's the thing, okay? If God exists, right? He himself has made it very clear that he made humans male and female, period. There was no transsexual, there was no people who identified as binary, nothing. He made man and woman, he made male and female. And whether if you believe in God or not, here's what I believe. The Bible says, obviously, that that mankind essentially will, at their very nature, goes against God. And if what I'm saying is correct, this is just another example of mankind trying to make their own God, in this case out of sex, out of gender, and to ignore the boundaries in which God has created humans in this earth. But again, I obviously still believe, I believe that God loves everyone, and I believe that he wants you guys to have a good life, and that he cares about you, and that he wants you ultimately to come to know him, to have your faith in God. to have your faith in Him. But again, the parallel between America and Christianity is that you are a free individual. You have the freedom to believe in whatever you want to believe in, but again, this is another harsh reality that people don't want to accept, is that your actions have consequences. And if God made people to operate within a certain realm based on how they were born, then when you try and step outside of that, you are essentially creating consequences for yourself that are self-inflicted, and that no one else can break that except for you. No one's praise is going to break that for you. You forcing your beliefs into other people's faces isn't going to fix that for you. It is your responsibility to fix that. But again, that's up to you. You have to make the decision. You have to decide whether you want to keep saying that you're something that you biologically aren't and that God didn't create you to be, or you can come to acceptance that maybe you were wrong. At least partially entertain that. Say, maybe I was wrong. I'm going to play devil's advocate against my own belief and see if that holds any water. And I guarantee that you will not only be surprised, but you will find a peace and a joy in going against the grain in this case that will make you feel better than you've ever felt before in your entire life. Finding your identity, this applies to whether you're transgender or not. I believe that everyone is seeking identity. Everyone, regardless of sexuality. Even myself. I still struggle with identity. Not in not my sexual identity. Just like, who am I? Like, what am I doing here on this earth? So we at least share that in common. But once you come to acceptance with something that you're good at, or who you are in God, or whatever the case may be, that's when you truly thrive. That's when you truly find peace. That's when you truly grow as a person, and you are able to be something that you didn't think you could be, but in a good way. Anyways, so those are my thoughts. So I think God loves you. I think God wants what's best for you. He's laid out His law perfectly. He's made things pretty clear as to how He made this world and how it operates best. But again, we have free will to do what we want. But again, there are consequences for bad decisions and for going against God. That is the very nature of sin. That's what Adam and Eve did in the Garden of Eden, and all of us do that every single day. Okay, when Satan told Eve, did God really say, that you would die if you ate this fruit? And he made God out to be the bad guy, where he said that God knows that if you eat this fruit, that you will be like Him, knowing good from evil. And I mean, he technically wasn't wrong. Given one of the videos that I've talked about this, he wasn't technically wrong, but he was he was deceiving them into thinking that if they could just be like God, that they would be better off. And it turns out that was a lie. It turns out that actually made things worse. People don't find peace until they accept, whether you believe in God or not, the logic that this earth is formed under, being that there's only two genders. You will not find that peace until you come to grips and acceptance of that reality that exists. I'm not saying your reality, I'm not saying my reality, I'm saying reality. The reality of the situation is that for the longest time, there's only been male and female. If you feel a certain way, okay, cool. But that doesn't change who you are as a person physically. It only changes how you respond, how you think, how you go about processing thoughts. That's all that proves. But none of that is scientific, none of that is biological, none of that is even logical. Did I say that already? Anyways, if I didn't, there you go. So, all I'm saying is this. If anything, try playing devil's advocate. See if that doesn't do anything for you. See if that doesn't maybe make you feel a little bit different in a good way. Maybe it makes you feel a little bit more empowered to go down this train of thought, and then continue going down that train of thought until you think that it's failed you and that it no longer holds any weight. But you have to be willing to take an open and honest approach towards it. Anyways, that's just my thoughts. That's my final conclusive thoughts. So I'm going to go now. Thank you guys for watching again. I'll see you guys next time in the next one.